So I guess we're started. Hello to everyone online. Thank you all for coming. My name is Bruce McIntosh. I'm the past president of the Ontario Autism Coalition. I want to give, first of all, some thank yous to Lolly Herman and her staff here at Under the Umbrella Tree for generously giving us their space and their support. The folks from Autism Speaks in CASDA, and of course Senator Munson, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. We're here to talk about a national autism strategy and why Justin Trudeau is missing in action on this. Now, the Ontario Autism Coalition is an Ontario organization. We've been around for 15 years now, and our focus has been primarily provincial. We work with people with autism at all ages. Sadly, we've had to campaign about youth services far too many times. We're very proud to say that we have people with autism on our leadership team. In the back of the room today, Nico Van Speck, who co-chairs our Youth Advisory Committee. So we've been concerned with these issues for a very long time. The reason that the coalition was founded was because of a broken promise from a fellow by the name of Dalton McGuinty in the 2003 election campaign. And he had told us when he was running what he was going to do, and then he didn't do it. In fact, he defended the government against a court order to do what he had said he would do. So campaigns and promises, we're kind of familiar with that stuff too. But we're here today to avoid the problems that we have had in Ontario at the federal level. Autism can't be a political issue. It has to be across party lines. It has to be across levels of government in the strategy that we have to address it. And there's one leader at the federal level right now of a major party who has not committed to developing a national strategy, and that's our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. So we're here today, once again, to make the case about why he needs to get on board with this and make a public commitment right away. We have with us a guest today who's been advocating at the federal level for quite a while now. Senator Munson spearheaded the push to get a Senate committee put together 12 years ago, and they published a report called Pay Now or Pay Later, Autism Families in Crisis. And he has been vocal on this issue ever since, and he's been doing interviews as recently as yesterday and today. Jim, Senator, we're proud to have you with us. I wonder if you could fill us in a little bit on the history of autism policy at the federal level.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bruce, very much. I'm losing my voice, and the reason I'm losing my voice is because I've been talking so much about an issue which is close to my heart and in your hearts. And of course, that is autism. And nobody wants to remain speechless when it comes to this issue, particularly 2 weeks to go before the election day. And with my wife, we have worked so hard with so many people in the autism community over the last dozen years. And as Bruce alluded to, the Pay Now or Pay Later report, Autism Families in Crisis, and by the way, that term, Pay Now or Pay Later, came from a young man with Asperger's who appeared before the Senate committee 12 years ago, who said, folks, you're either going to have to pay now or pay later, meaning that as a society, if we don't get our ducks in order in terms of a national autism strategy, in terms of working with it as much as we can with one voice, and being collaborative in dealing with research, housing, employment, accessibility, you name it, then as a society we're going to pay much later. It's going to cost society a lot more. I come at this as a human rights issue, a moral issue, an issue of inclusion. And with that report, governments have taken bits and pieces of that report. We've had, for example, a Chair of Excellence, which has worked very well from York University. We've had money that's gone into CIHR, the Canadian Institute of Health Research, looking at different ways of dealing with autism at a very early age. We've had programs in dealing with employment and so on. But we are missing the key fundamental aspect of what the autism community in this country is demanding, and that's a national strategy, where the government is not necessarily, the federal government is not necessarily the leader, but is a collaborator working with advocates, families, and of course the provinces. That's what it has to be about. And so I sit back today, and when I took a look at the platforms, and I saw that it was not in the Liberal Party platform, my heart sank. We worked so hard. We worked so hard to get here. Yes, it's in the platforms of the NDP, Conservatives, and the Green Party, but it wasn't there. And we've had MPs from, led by Judy Scrow and others, and in the Liberal caucus, many of them, dozens and dozens of them, who have come forward and said, yes, and we have a petition, and we'll do this. And there was a resolution as well at the Winnipeg Convention dealing with the National Autism Strategy. And I never felt so let down in my life. When I tweeted and said that disappointment puts it mildly, I sat and said, what do I focus on? And I said, I have to continue my focus on the families. I have to continue my focus on the advocates for families. I have to continue on focusing on those who work with children every day. The whole autism community. That's what I have to stay focused on. And here we are with a common sense. Just makes sense to have a national autism strategy. This is not about politics. This is about people, real people. People who each and every day, I was just thinking of some parents perhaps last night, a difficult night, dealing with a son or daughter and just trying to get through the night and then moving on and getting on with life again. And there are so many gaps, and this national autism strategy can fill that gap. It's a missed opportunity, but there is still time. So for Mr. Trudeau, I say, open up your heart. Think about this thing through, because I have no idea who said no to this at the end in the Liberal Party. I'm an independent Liberal senator, so I don't have access to who was on the pen or writing the platform. But we were led to believe, after the incredible work by CASDA, Canadian Autism Spectrum Disorders Alliance, we were led to believe by many people within the caucus and others that we're going to get it. Well, today we don't have it, at least within the Liberal Party platform. But we got about less than 2 weeks to go, and there is significant time to just sit back and say, okay, no, let's just take a look at the community across the country. Let's see what we can do. Because if you're sitting in a room, I think the Liberal Party has to think outside the box. Its own box of what they may think or what they may do. They have to put the priorities of people in front of them. So if the Liberal Party is choosing forward, as their slogan goes, choose forward, well, how can you choose forward unless you have the autism community as part of that forward movement? You're doing so many things, and climate change and other many issues that are extremely important, but at the end of the day, after we all worked on the Hill and the Senate, and we, in a collaborative way with different groups and Conservative senators and Liberal senators and independent senators, we laid out the platform. CASDA has laid out the platform for where we want to go and what we need in the future. It's an emotional time. It truly is an emotional time when you put your heart and soul into this with others. So for the Prime Minister, have a rethink. Think about it. Talk to your colleagues, and I'm sure that at the door in this election, people have asked me, how am I going to vote? Well, doesn't matter which way how I vote. But it does matter how the people in the autism community vote. It really does matter. And they have a strong voice and a big voice. And that voice, I think, should be paid attention to. And join the chorus. Join the political chorus about helping people. NDP have said yes, the Green Party have said yes, the Conservatives have said yes to a national strategy. You know, we just need one more yes to make this work. And with that, I guess I introduce Debbie, or Deborah Irish. Yeah.
So I'm Debbie Irish. I am the chair of CASDA, the Canadian ASD Alliance, and we are a coalition made up of service providers, researchers, self-advocates, and allies. And our primary goal is to advocate for a national autism strategy. And we thought we were right there. And we, like Senator Munson, were very disappointed when we saw the Liberal platform. And so we're here to say we need it. We need this. Canadians need this. Over 500,000 Canadians live with autism. And we need to be advocating for this. In terms of CASDA, we've spent over probably 10 years collecting information, consulting. We started with a national needs assessment where we consulted with over 6,000 Canadians on the needs of people with autism as well as their families. Service providers were consulted, autistic Canadians were consulted, and family members were consulted. And from that, we took information. Together we went back to the government. The Conservative government granted funds to again consult on what was needed for a national autism strategy. We spent a few years consulting with, again, 6,000 Canadians and developed what we believe to be very strong elements for a national autism strategy. The government changed. We presented it for ongoing funding, and unfortunately it was turned down. The time is now. CASDA went back to the drawing board, developed a blueprint for an autism strategy that the federal government could get behind. It identified ways in which the government could collaborate with their provincial and territorial counterparts. It clearly identified a way for them to take leadership in the Canadian landscape, to lead a strategy for people with autism. We want to focus on the areas that the federal government have jurisdiction. I have this document with me here, which talks about those areas that the federal government can take action and immediate action. Affordability and access. And yes, we did hear about that in the federal platform on the Liberal side. However, there are other areas that they can talk about. Information dissemination, employment, housing, research. But all of that can't be worked on unless we have a collaborative, coordinated approach, and that's what we need the federal government to do. So we are asking the Liberal government to get on board. Please, we need this, families need this, individuals need this, and we're asking you to take action. Thank you.
So hi, good afternoon. My name is Laura Kirby-McIntosh, and I'm the president of the Ontario Autism Coalition. Proud mom to 2 teenagers on the spectrum, and I'm a teacher as well. I just want to say thank you again to Lolly and her team at Under the Umbrella Tree for hosting, for Senator Munson for joining us today, for Autism Speaks, and CASDA. Thanks to all of you for your support on this. We're here to put out a strong call today for a national autism strategy. Autistic people have incredible contributions to offer to our communities if only we can find the right ways to support and empower them. However, after what we've seen happen to our autism community here in Ontario, we're all too aware that programs and services can be upended on a moment's notice by a new government. That's why federal leadership on a national autism strategy is so desperately needed right now. Autism affects over 500,000 people. That's a huge number. But think also about the people around those individuals, families, parents, and siblings who need respite and support. Schools and the broader community, schools in particular who are struggling to meet the needs of our children, especially with fewer teachers here in Ontario. Increasingly, our kids are excluded from schools and face huge challenges accessing the curriculum in a meaningful way. The provincial government here still has a long way to go in terms of meeting the needs of autistic students. But another huge issue is unemployment. According to the 2012 Canadian Survey on Disability, 86% of adults with autism are unemployed. Surely the federal government can do more to improve those numbers and leverage the unique talents that autistic people can bring to the workplace. The federal government can also provide much needed leadership on housing for people with disabilities. It can also work to make sure that services are more consistent from one province to another. We know from a variety of sources that they're not. The next thing that I'm going to say is just downright embarrassing. In the United States, funding to evidence-based treatment is widely accessible thanks to legislation that forces private insurance companies to cover it. Last month, the President signed the Autism Cares Act, which allocates funding for research, prevalence tracking, screening, professional training, and other government activities related to autism. Now, I'm no fan of the man facing impeachment, but even he is further ahead on autism policy than our leaders here in Canada. We need to do better. That's why we need our Prime Minister to step up and commit to developing a national autism strategy without any further delay. Mr. Trudeau, I'm signing and sending you a letter today, but don't wait for it to land on your desk, because we've been waiting for too long. And so with that, I'm going to sign a letter that's going to the Prime Minister, to Mona Fortier, to Judy Scrow, Pam Danoff, and to the Liberal Party of Canada, calling on the Liberal Party to release a commitment to a national autism strategy.
As a self-advocate, I'd like to sign that as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Just send it over here. I invite everybody that spoke today up one more time for a photo. And that concludes the formal speaking part.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, as a 500,000 strong, when you think about the numbers, you know, Joni Mitchell in her song, right? Back in the days of Woodstock, and the Woodstock concert a long time ago said, by the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong. Well, we're beyond that. We're 500,000 strong, and we're not going away. We really aren't going away, and we'll continue to fight this. And if there is a quote minority government, we hope that we can count on the players in a minority government to continue, to push this, because I think we don't want to be angry. We just want to be forceful. We just right. We don't want to go to that place, because a lot of people go to that place, and nobody likes an angry argument. We just have a reasoned argument, to say.
Really good
And we're just fearful for our kids and our adults like myself.
Exactly. So I just feel that it's
It's time.
time. It's
time,
way
yeah.
beyond the time.
It's time then.
Well, that's our hashtag.
Yeah.
Just in time for autism.
Oh, all right. Well, that's a good thing to see.
Yeah.
Also, autism doesn't end at 18.
That's right. Okay.
And just to say it, because I think we do have some live streaming going on here.
Yeah.
That like in my work as a senator and with other allies in the political community, and I've said it before, and it's really important to understand that autism has no borders, right? And people are going across this country back and forth. People are mortgaging their homes. There's divorces. There's so much difficulty just to raise enough money. What we're doing is raising awareness, but just to have enough money, to give proper care, because in the autism community, every child that grows up to be older wants to be part of and engaged in part of the community, and that means a working part of the community, which is really extremely important.
I would say, Senator Munson, I opened under the umbrella tree just over 18 years ago.
Right.
I'm a teacher as well. a mother to 3 who are in our public system, and I have not seen anything as chaotic
Neither have I.
as what I see.
In my 7 years of advocacy, I've never seen anything this chaotic. I've been at this since the night Kathleen Wynne was named Premier, and I've never seen anything this chaotic in 7 years.
Well, another thing that's worth stressing is that this really is a nonpartisan issue.
Yeah.
All of us here represent nonpartisan organizations, and I mean the OAC has been very, very vocal here provincially, but it's time for the federal government to step up and to see all of the major parties except the one come out with a national strategy is just it's awkward. We'd like to see it in everybody's platforms, and then people can make their decision on
which one is best.
You know, based on other factors as well.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking that, you know, in the platform, people with autism, this is more than just a tax credit.
Oh,
This is more than just a child tax benefit. This is more than a deductibility. So it would be, you know, that's fine. That helps. But that's subjective, but basically it helps the basic needs. So we're
And we don't want a Band-Aid solution, we want a permanent solution.
You got it.
And a coordinated solution.
Yeah.
That
And
takes into consideration.
well, and that's
Yeah.
where your
provincial,
roadmap
territorial.
is so clear.
And we've been told over, you know, the provinces have said over and over again, yes, we do.
want this.
We want the federal government to come in and to sit down at that table. You know, that whole principle. I used to be a journalist, and the idea this is a provincial responsibility doesn't cut any weight with me at all. You know.
It's going to take everybody.
But don't let me go on anymore.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
We can-
Okay, right over here.
There we go.
1, 2.
Always rep, always plug.
This is what I mean.
Yeah.
This is a big
Perfect.